Oscars Day in Australia Monday anyway. And I'll tell you what, Ronan O'Gara was not having anything of it overnight. He was in absolute anger, frustration, because what he witnessed was apparently the end of rugby as we know it, a dark day for rugby. To give a red card for that, I'm not trying to protect Will, but because it's not good. But a rugby player who does that, it's quite an interesting gesture. Ronan O'Gara essentially saying that Will Skelton got shown a red card overnight in the French top 14 because of some play acting from the Stade Francais prop. Unfortunate for him, we're not going to be talking too much about the top 14. But I'll tell you what's the biggest kind of play acting moment that you've seen on a rugby field? Because it was an interesting one overnight in the French top 14.
Yeah, the French top 14 never, that was, especially Stade France, they're never too far away from some acting or some shenanigans, aren't they? Their halftime shows and all that have been pretty good, but it sounds like this one got blurred, or the lines got blurred. I don't know. I was actually recently going through the old Nigel Owens, you know, when he sits them down and stuff like that. I quite enjoyed that. I don't know if I saw too many. You would get a little bit of a spray from people, and it was kind of against the spirit of it. But
here's one for you. What about Nick White against the Springboks?
That obviously gets it, doesn't it? Now that you say it, friend of the pod. He got a penalty.
Very good friend.
I think from all reports that made his life a lot harder, and has ever since. He they don't let him forget it over in South Africa. Apparently, it's difficult for him to get around without getting sprayed over there.
Those listening to the pod, let us know some of the things that you've seen that just haven't passed the pub test, because I'm sure that there's plenty out there. Hey, look, a lot coming up on today's edition of the Roar Rugby Podcast. We're going to check in with Carlo Tizzano, the Western Force and Wallabies flanker, and reading Paul Cully's column over the weekend, he suggested and brought up, could we have another example of we've had War and George Smith, Pocock and Hooper. Could there be a McWright and Tizzano combination in the future for the Wallabies? And it's a really interesting kind of question at the moment, because the back row balance and how many people are putting up their hands is a great thing. I'm sure Jonas Schmidt will be really thrilled with the options up his sleeve, but so much to dissect with him, how he's managed to turn the corner from being a Super Rugby player to being an international player. But it just continues the good vibes of Super Rugby, doesn't it? Because another weekend where all 5 matches went right down to the balance, and it's cracking, isn't it? It's finally good to see some jeopardy and some interest in this competition.
Yeah, it's great. They've all been thrillers, and just the finishing, the style, all of it. Like, it's like fair play to organisers, refs, players, everyone. It's genuinely turned a great corner, and it's good this time of year as well. Once again, while we're before the NRL's really properly kicked off, hopefully get a few more people following it, and it feels a little bit like it's back again. It's delivering what it used to in terms of the entertainment value, and hopefully we'll start kind of leading the way again in the way the game is played.
Super Rugby being back, I like to hear it. Okay, so a lot coming up on the Roar Rugby Podcast. That's Matt Tamur. I'm Christy Doran. More on the other side of this. All right, before we look ahead to this week, round 4, let's go back, and we're going to start right back from where it all finished with the Western Force and the Reds. 28-24, went down to the last minute where Filippo Dangunu killed off the hopes of the Force, who were going for 3 in a row and the 3 first games of the year for the first time ever, and they fell just short. Cracking game out in the West once again.
Yeah, it really was. And like I said, the tries nice and open. A few forwards getting a few short ones, but set up by some backs. The Force, their first phase play has been pretty good this year. I think back to that Brumbies game where they got one off the back of the line out, and then that scrum on the weekend. Donaldson going to the line. He's looking better and better, isn't he? He's looking comfortable. He fits their game plan as well, I feel.
Oh, I thought that was amazing. The double pump, it was in the lead up to the second try. I think Peach just fell a metre short, but then Darcy Swain, next phase, scores, gets over in tight. Perfect way to start. They were 14-0 up before it very quickly swung back to the Reds at 14-0. Donaldson with the penalty after 30 minutes. The game, I think, swung a bit when Tom Liner was forced off just before half-time. Tizzano with a second, Josh Fluke with a second, and then Danguna finishes it off. So many highlights. Ben Donaldson, I agree. I think he's the form number 10. You did a bit of a analysis of the 10s at the moment. But Dono only just put his name further forward in front of Joe Schmidt.
Yeah, and a losing team as well. And in all honesty, I was really disappointed Liner had to go off because I thought he was looking good too. He was flattening up really well second phase. That try he scored, he's kind of it's really for a fly half like him who's an organizer, it's real easy to kind of sit back and direct. But the fact that he was just playing on top of it, supporting Seru was really good signs and signs that he's been well coached and he's confident. So a bit disappointing. I still think they're probably the two form guys at the moment, that's for sure. But Donaldson, doing all the first things first. He's doing all his passing's great, his kicking's great, his running game is easily the best out of all the 10s. So it's he's in some form.
It seems like the first time that he's ever hit the season running and he's owning the side. It looks like his side almost, doesn't it? Because last year, some of the quality that he just started to display throughout the year kind of came off the back of Curtly Beale coming back into the side and providing a bit of that leadership and the experience. But Dono's, without him there, it's his side.
Yeah, his chest seems a bit, big-eyed and confident. I think he understands the structures as well. I think if you compare that to the Waratahs at the moment, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, you're probably seeing them getting through figuring out their systems the way that Dan wants to coach. Dan probably didn't get a blank slate in terms of his squad. And so you're getting guys maybe instilling a program or a system that they're not necessarily ready for or understand completely. Whereas, you flip that, Donaldson much better for the 12 months he had last year. And he's been well supported. I think Greeley was exceptional. I thought he was unreal last year as well for the Reds, and I think it's a big loss that they lost him. But I think he adds a lot to their game as well. The fact that he can kick, pass, and tackle and run. Sorry, he's genuine threat.
He's probably been the most underrated signing of the year, I reckon, Rugby really, to come in and just slot in at 15 seamlessly. He looks very, very good indeed. And I think those matches in September when the Force went over to South Africa are clearly helping. What do you think? Was Nick Dolly a bit lucky not to get penalised for that shot on Tom Liner? I can't believe it didn't get picked up on the stroke of half-time by the officials.
Yeah, no. I think it's always when there's such a the impact on such a big guy on a small guy, you almost look back. But he's a tough boy. He Sammy Penny-Finau kind of left his imprint on a few ribs last year, and I think it was okay. I probably didn't get too many looks at it, to be fair. But yeah, it's all part of the game, I guess, and it tests their depth. I hope is he, what was it, a head knock or?
My understanding is that, he failed his first HIA, but passed his second one. And usually if you fail your first one, it's a 7-day stand down. But I think my understanding is that he's passed his second one, which allows him to play 7 days later on. And it just so happens that the Reds play Crusaders next Sunday. So he'll be okay to play at this point in time. So interesting one. Hey, probably the biggest battle and context of the game that it was built around was the back row, and it was an unbelievable challenge between the two respective back rows with Sarah Ruru, Fraser McGrath, Harry Wilson up against Carlo Tizzano's back row featuring Reed Prinsep and Nick Champion de Crepney. We're going to be joined by the star of the Force right on the other side of this with Carlo Tizzano. Carlo Tizzano, mate, you're probably one of the most talked about players in 2025. You've hit the season running, and it's awesome to have you on the pod. Thanks. How are you?
Thanks for having me, lads. Yeah, like I said before, the body is a bit sore. So just all I'm thinking about is recovery because we go again. Got a big game this weekend against a big back row as well. So yeah, it's exciting, but yeah, got to get the rig right.
You're 2 from 3 to start the year. And I think the manner in which the games have been played, how direct you've been, physical as well. Clearly, there's been a step up. What has that been? Quite a conscious thing in terms of getting that directness back into your game.
Yeah, well, for me personally, or the force,
The team, sorry, the
the
team.
team.
I know
Sorry,
you're
sure.
always direct, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I just think after so we had a couple of years of chrono now, I just think everything's really fallen into place. I don't think necessarily too much has changed. I just think boys are understanding the shape better and extending each other better. So like us running onto the ball off Whitey, we know the timing a bit better and whatnot. Like just little things like that has made a big difference, and we're just slowly been leveling up in other areas as well, like our breakdown and whatnot. So yeah, I wouldn't say like nothing has really changed a lot from last year to make us go 2 and 3 for the year, but I just think everything's just fallen into place a lot better, which is nice because you work your ass off, and you want to see some fruits from the labour. So it's very been very validating for the boys to get a couple wins early on.
It's interesting you talk about the fact that another year on with Cronny through the journey that everyone is feeling better because Matt's been talking about that, the continuity that's been shown on the field. It happens. It doesn't happen overnight. And you look at the Waratahs, they're probably a bit clunky at the moment. We'll come to them in a moment. But before we get there, though, you came off the back of an amazing year where you make your Wallabies debut, uh, starred throughout, had an experience up in the Northern Hemisphere against Scotland. What was the biggest challenge that you found last year, and the highlight looking back on it? What was it?
Um, Biggest challenge, I think. To be honest, I love the environment. I wouldn't say it was. Actually, to be honest, the most challenging thing was just being able to learn on the go, just straight away. Like, there's no breathing room to, oh, now can we go back and go through this? It's like, no, you got to understand it straight away. Like, before my first test against South Africa, I had 2 or 3 training sessions to learn the shape, learn the plays, and then try and build the combinations with boys and whatnot in 2 or 3 sessions, which is pretty hard against the world champs. So that was definitely a challenge, but as you saw with the Wallabies as a whole towards the on spring tour, and even again that last game against Ireland, like we were really clicking, and it was awesome to see because, um, like I said with the force, like the boys, the Wallabies, we work bloody hard. So it was really nice to see that come into play. So then, yeah, my highlight was wearing that gold jersey. I think playing at Suncorp was pretty cool, but playing that second test in Perth at Optus was awesome because I went to the school across the river from Optus. So I saw that thing be built from the ground up. So I was always used to. I'm very big visualizer, so I'd always visualize myself playing there one day and whatnot when it was being built. So yeah, to see it be built and then actually play there was pretty cool.
Well, you just mentioned visualizing. I can't really remember a player from Australia, anyway, particularly in the back row, who's gone from Super Rugby to Test quite seamlessly. Like you seem genuinely like you were almost like there wasn't a huge step up in that sense. Like you're physically quite ready for that. What do you kind of put that down to? Do you just simplify it? Is it a lot of visualization, a lot of help from people around you?
Yeah, it's been everything, to be honest. I think when I played my first game, I definitely felt like I didn't feel out of place. I felt like I was ready for this because all the decisions I made and all the habits and routines I formed over the years of being a professional rugby player kind of led to that moment. So I didn't go out there with any anxiety or anything like that. I was just like I've done everything I possibly can to get to this point. I've worked my ass off, and I've taken a road less traveled than others. Like you really learn a lot about yourself playing in the championship division of rugby in UK. Like playing in Cornish Pirates away, you learn a lot about yourself and how much you love the game. So to kind of go from there and still stay motivated, still stay hungry, and then come back and then get the opportunity. I wasn't going to let it. I wasn't going to let slip through my grasp. So I took it on with 2 hands and yeah, I felt comfortable out there. I felt confident because like I said before, the routines, the habits, everything I'd done led to that moment.
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey, and I remember just the other. It feels like the other week, but really a couple of years ago that you and Michael Hooper were kind of going at it, and it was you very much wanted to take his spot, and now you're very much wearing a number 7 jersey and looking like you belong in the international arena. I read the other day that you put on about 6-7 kilos over the last couple of months. Like that's a fair bit of weight to put on in a short time. Is that just to give yourself some more armor and allow you to kind of be more confrontational from the international perspective, or what was some of the rationale behind that?
So in June when we had the camps, the Wallaby camps, I had my little feedback session with Joe, Jeff, Laurie, and all that, and basically they said I was too light, and then I need to put some weight on. If I can get to 98 kilos, 100 kilos, that'll be perfect. So during that period, I had 5 weeks off because I wasn't a part of the July series. So I had 5 weeks off, and I just went to work. I was just training as much as I could. I stopped running completely, so I just could pack the weight on, and then got to 98 kilos in like a week and a half. And then I sent a photo to Joe, just letting him know that I'm 98 kilos, so I'm ready to go. And then, yeah, just kept grinding away. Then Fraser got injured, so I slotted in. I just had to let him know that I meant business, and I was ready to go. And you best believe the first day I got brought into Wallabies camp, he weighed me, and I weighed 101.5 that day, so I was pretty happy.
I know Jake White used to make some of the back rows, if they were putting on weight, send him photos at 2:30 a.m. of them taking a protein shake. Did you have anything random like that helped chuck it on, or was it just chocolates, or was it what was it?
Nah, it was
Combination of what?
clean. It was clean. No, I literally just. Well, I'm pretty lucky. My mom's dietitian, so I do have like awareness around nutrition and whatnot. It was just honestly, I just needed time off. Like that's all I needed. Like the I am so grateful and appreciative for being a part of the Wallabies in the spring tour this year because I didn't have to do the 4 month, 3 month preseason because I like it's so hard to put weight on in the Perth heat. It's 40 degrees. So I'm also very grateful for the boys that did that this year. Because I know how hard it is. And we wouldn't play in the footy we're playing right now if it wasn't for them ripping in. So yeah, it's the pre-seasons, man. Like it's 3 months of like, and we run a lot, do a lot of running. So for me to try and put weight on and gym hard when I'm getting bashed up in training and whatnot is not easy. So the time off is all I needed, and I've been able to hold my weight now. So that means I think my body actually needed it. The time off so I can just hold the weight and rip in.
Tell us, what was the response from Joe when you texted him?
What was it? What did he say? He's like, good. It said, awesome to see the work being done. Yeah, something like that.
Nice. Keep it very
Yeah,
professional. That's good from Joe.
yeah.
The Force finally look like they belong out there at the moment, and you can see that with the depth, with the squad list, the excitement from the outside backs. We're just talking about Mac Riley and how much he's fit into this group so seamlessly. But even up front, I imagine it feels great to know that, speaking of being bashed, you're not going to get bashed because there's some big guys out there. Bring us into camp a little bit and tell us a bit more about guys like Nick Champion de Crepney and the Darcy Swains who was over there. What's it like playing with these kind of guys?
Oh, I absolutely love playing with them. I just think they just give different perspectives on how the game's played. Das coming from the Brums and Crep coming from Cast. So it's just different ways they see the game and just the influence they've had. You can see it on the field. Like, Crep is willing to hit anything at all times. And his feedback after every single game is we need more physicality, even though we've been smashing the opposition. So yeah, it's pretty funny. I love it. And then like a guy like Swaney, he's just a cool, calm head to have around. But when he needs to flick the switch as well, he'll flick the switch. Like at halftime, he probably gave one the old halftime against the Brumbies. Even though we didn't flick the switch that well, we switched off a little bit. But he probably gave one of the all-time halftime speeches you will ever hear. So having guys like that around just gives like different flavor and taste around in the group, and they've added so much value. So even the guy like BPA, for example, like having just the complete, like, say, opposite to how I am with how I go about my business. Like, but that's what we need. We need all these different personalities, all these different ways people see the game for us to evolve and create like our own way we play. So
It is
yeah, that's been
probably,
awesome.
yeah, it is probably a strength and that makes it quite difficult because it is, the four set sometimes looks a little bit like the UN. You've just got players from everywhere, you got Sammy Carter in there as well, who's got heaps of experience, especially in Ulster. But it's quite nice seeing it gel because you can kind of, I think, having a lot of that Northern Hemisphere input, particularly around the forwards, is probably helpful for you guys.
Yeah, definitely. I think the off-field stuff as well, just like big thing for us is theming wise is around like Perth is our chosen home. Well, for me, it's always been my home, but for other boys, it's their chosen home. So credit to them really buying into that. I think that's what we're seeing. That's why we're gelling so well at the moment, is because boys have really bought into that off-field stuff, which actually it makes the biggest difference. I think, off-field connections is one of the foundations for long-term success, and I think we're really nailing that at the moment. Like, everyone's getting on really well, and we all respect each other, and just love spending time with each other as well. So it's good fun. I love going to. Usually, I actually get a bit anxious about going on tour and whatnot, because I love my space. I love being at home, but I'm really excited to go on this 2-week tour with the lads and whatnot. So yeah.
What's it like having Leon McDonald join, and what does he bring? Has he been watching and kind of dealing with the coaches, or have you been able to work with him as well?
A bit of both. I think, like I said before, with the other boys, just a different way someone sees the game, and just the input they can have into molding our own way we want to play at the Force. So having him around's been awesome. He's helping out with all the programs, which is going to add a lot of value to the club moving forward. Like, our academy is awesome. So you got guys like Jeremy Thrush and John O'Lance leading that, but then you add in a guy like Leon, setting the standard there and helping them coach is going to make even more of a difference. And same with the women's program as well. So yeah, mate, I'm really excited about the future with the Western Force. I'm hoping I can be a part of it. It's something really exciting.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear, and I know that how passionate you are. You've always been a very proud man to wear the Western Force jersey. Rajan Pasatoa is another guy that's come back. Awesome to see him. He's toiled away for a couple of years. You would have seen him do that more than most people. Tell us about, like, it was a very narrow defeat. I imagine it would have been very disappointing at the end of full time, but must be pleasing to see guys like Rajan back in the mix. And geez, he's put some weight on himself.
I'm so happy to see him come back. I mentioned it during the week, like, just about how that guy's attitude is second to none, in terms of he's been injured for 2 years, superstar growing up, but he has come in every day. He could have easily come in to training, and Matty, like, when sometimes the boys get injured, they can have the head down and just be in the dumps a bit. But he came in every single day with a smile on his face, looking to add value in anywhere he can. And I think to do that when you're at your lowest of lows, is shows the true character of a person. And yeah, we're just so appreciative to have him as a teammate, and then to see him go out and perform like he did on the weekend was awesome to see. And we just can't wait to see what more he has in the tank, because I know he's only getting started. His first time he's played 13, I think, as well. Like,
I was just going to touch on that. Like, he's probably, like, I remember when I was playing and he was coming up, and you knew about him, this kind of ball player, 10-12 player. And then on the weekend, it's such a credit to him. He's been 2 years out injured. He gets a shot at 13. He starts running over guys. Like, it probably just shows where his head's at more than anything, and his commitment.
yeah, bloody oath. Like, just, yeah, so proud of him, the journey he's been on, and just to keep chipping away and coming every day with a smile on your face. Guys like that you need in your squad, and that's what we're trying to build at the Force, is guys with those types of attitudes. So yeah,
There's a bunch of guys who used to play for the Waratahs that are now at the Force. You're one of them. You might not hail from New South Wales like several others, like the Will Harrison, the Ben Donaldsons of the world, the Dylan Peaches. But I imagine this is a game you almost circle in your calendar a little bit, coming over and taking on the Tars. What's it going to be like? And now that the Force have started the year, I think you're in the top 4 at the moment. You must have your tails up, and you must come to Sydney with a fair amount of confidence as well.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be an awesome game. Like, I think these Australian derbies are all really exciting. Every single Australian derby is gonna be really exciting this year. So this is just one of them. Especially with the Tars, like they've scraped through a couple wins, and their growth is only going to be better and better. Like you look, they've only just put together that team in a couple months, and they're managing to win games. And the way they're doing it, like credit to them. And they're only going to get better. So I think we versed them twice this year as well. So it's gonna be exciting to verse them this weekend and then verse them towards the back end of the year as well. Just to see their growth because they got an awesome coaching group around there. They got amazing talent as well. So it's going to be cool to get at the start of the year, then towards the back end of the year. I'm pretty sure we do have them. I'm trying to take it week by week at the moment, lads.
God, I didn't think we get through it without you saying that.
Yeah.
Game of two arms.
My body hates me at the minute. So
oh God. One thing I mentioned just before you jumped on was like a couple of first phase tries, but something that's been quite noticeable. Well, when I was watching the game was seeing Dono backfield, Whitey in the trams, and then at the front line you had Peach, yourself, and then your centers. Like that's obviously quite a clever way of doing it. Like teams that want to attack that seam of the line out to go into yourself and Peach, who are kind of both back rowers, versus what other teams would usually typically do is your 9 and 10. Cronny's obviously thinking about the game a little bit differently, and he's not afraid to kind of pull those strings.
Yeah, look, I think so Will Eggleston, our D coach, he's obviously working with Chrono and working with other coaches and just trying to approach the game in a different way. And I love the setup that we're doing at the moment. And we've definitely, I think in those little mini groups, we're all working with each other to help us get off the line quicker and do see pitches that one of us might not be able to see because we're focusing on something else. So I love that little mini groups we're forming on the field at the moment.
Before we let you go, a story over the weekend from Paul Cully, respected rugby writer for a long, long time, brought up the possibility, is there the chance of having a Mick Wright and a Tizzano play together in the same side? Is that something that, we've seen it at the 2003 World Cup, we've seen it, at the 15 and 19 with Hooper and Pocock. Is it something that you'd love, and the possibility of yourself and Fraser maybe not just competing for a spot but playing together? Would it work as well?
That. Yeah, I love that. I think any opportunity to wear the gold jersey and just play footy, I'm all for. And I think, I'm all for having 2 sevens on the field. I'm all for it because, it means that means more boys get to play. But I just think as well, like you have 2 sevens on the field, it just gives way more breakdown pressure. And if one of them, you just got to get one of them jumping the line out, and I can jump. So no one's seen it, but I can jump. I was going to jump in that Scotland game. I was ready to go. Mate, the idea of that, I would love it. I would, you best believe I was asking Joe to try and run 2 sevens, but I didn't get him over the line. So I'm definitely trying to prove my case at the moment for him to run 2 sevens because I love competing with Fraser, but it'd also be cool to be alongside him here and there, and I feel like we can kind of complement each other as well.
Yeah, I dare say against the Kiwis or Argentina, those kind of more open games, probably very good chance, would make a lot of sense. Have you worked on your like, because Hoops and Pocock were Pooper? What's your guys' like couple name? Nick Rizzo.
I was actually on the Coco show just before, and they were actually talking about this. I forgot what they came up with in the end, but
they're probably better than us. So
yeah, I didn't like Far. They said Farlow. I didn't like that one. I think it was Mixano or something like that.
Yeah,
something like that.
That's all right.
Hey, I'm all for it.
As long
as I can get on the field and play and do my thing, I'm happy. That's all I want to do is play footy.
Hey, Carlo, you're getting on the field, but you're also getting off the field, evidently. A man in demand on the podcast sphere as well. But it's also awesome to be able to catch up with you, and great to see your development as a rugby player. And you can clearly see that you're blossoming out in the field. So I'm sure there's many great things ahead in 2025, including a Lions series. Appreciate your time, Carlo. Good luck this weekend.
Thanks, heaps, lads. Really appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thanks, mate. Go well.
Well, Carlo Tizzano, it's no surprise that he wants to see it happen. Could you see it happening yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I think, but it would be the type of games like he mentioned, talking about in the Northern Hemisphere, because of the spring tour. Traditionally, that's probably where your set piece, is required a little bit more. And it also depends who your six is. If Valentine is the other three, it makes it quite difficult. If you've got a taller six, I know he's one of my favorite players, but Sarah Uru, he reminds me of Fardy so much, and in a weird way that might actually balance the back row out with those two guys. So it probably just depends who you got there.
He's been superb, Sarah. Tell me, did you think that the Pooper combination worked? Like, it clearly seemed to work in 2015, but then maybe didn't have the same impact or on the field anyway with the results later on? Yeah,
probably for various reasons. Like I said, it depends. The makeup's got to suit, and then also for me, it's not always the combination for every single game. I think that's probably something we traditionally, I don't think in Australia, have done amazingly well, is select towards the actual games. I think if you see other teams, they'll actually, we're very like old school. We pick our best team and we go nuts, But I reckon you see some other coaches, and I think Joe definitely has a bit of that about him, where they'll actually select a bit more based on the game. And it could have been a bit of anything. I think most people though would probably say the Pooper was pretty good.
Well, it's two world-class players, right? And you couldn't leave Pocock out, and Hooper in the form that he's displayed for 5, 6, 7 years was pretty irresistible as well.
I think as well, getting like Carlo bigger is very, very smart, because the way he plays, like if you look at Pooper, you look at George Smith, Phil Waugh, like he is very much more your Phil Waugh, and Mick Wright would be your George Smith, the kind of gloss and that. And I think what Tizzano does so well is those physical exchanges. So he's not going to lose anything by being a few kegs heavier. So no, it's good.
Yeah, I looked actually the other day at some of the weights of Ben Nell and Tom Curry. They're well into the hundreds. They're not just 98, 99. They're 108. I think Tom Curry, maybe even 110. Like, these guys are big blokes. Nonetheless, the Artie Severes and Sam Canes that often lined up in recent years for the All Blacks as well. So, yeah, I can see that working at times, but probably horses for courses. Sarah Uru, he's been quality. The Reds are going to travel to Christchurch to take on the Crusaders, who have had to bye, but they'll be without Josh Fluke, it looks like, with a hamstring injury. I'm pretty sure Tom Lionel will play, despite the fact that he copped a knock against the Force on the weekend. But what that means for the back line, when you've got no Jock Campbell, it's starting to test their depth in the back line. So maybe a Filippo Daungunu jumps into outside centre, I would think, and a Tim Ryan onto the wing. Yeah,
I think that makes the most sense. And bear in mind, Hunter, you could tell that he's missed a lot as well. So that makes them a bit short. I'll tell you what though, they've got a history, those two teams, of playing some rippers over in Christchurch. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm sure the coaches will have ways of kind of working around it. It is only round 3 or 4 now, so hopefully they're not too far down the depth chart.
Well, another man who'll be looking on for that one very closely and featuring, I dare say, is James O'Connor. Opportunity to come up.
Random,
it's an interesting one for more reasons than that, just the super game, because I know that Rabs, as they call him, he definitely still wants to feature for the Wallabies. So a big game for him up against the Reds, where we don't have to talk about how many Wallabies there are, but there's several of them.
Yeah, it's going to be massive. And I'm sure James will. He's obviously enjoying his new digs, and it'll be good. Like I said, I think this game has for some reason just delivered a lot in the last few years, and both teams like to play, and it'll be good. Hopefully, it's dry for once, and then looking forward to seeing Fraser and Wilso just kind of combining really well. I thought on the weekend they probably didn't get as many as they usually do, but they're just just world-class players, and I think they'll be good over there.
The Chiefs too good in the end for the Brumbies. I was about to say way too good. That would have been completely inaccurate, but a heck of a game, and it just got away from them at the end. It was probably the little moments where the Brumbies just allowed the Chiefs back into it with a couple of soft tries in that second half.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Ollie Sapsford, and I think he's been I really like him. He's a great player, but the Chiefs really targeted him a lot. You saw that. I saw a couple of their tries. The one off the scrum where he's shot out. Lenny stayed back, and there was another line out where they went out the back, peeled, and then he's jammed in. Lenny stayed back, and you could just see they were kind of on different pages. And he was obviously very keen, but the Chiefs very much went at that channel. And it probably doesn't help that the 12, as we mentioned off air, had an absolute ripper, and it's nice to see him back.
Yeah, Quinn to fire. To me, no Geordie Barrett in Super Rugby this year. I know people have been talking about Timothy Tavatavanaka, who's just been unbelievable for the Highlanders in recent weeks, and he was last year as well, and for Moana Pacific of the year before that. But Quinn Tapai to me is the 12th at the moment for the All Blacks. Like, he is just he's already played a dozen tests, the last one being in mid-2022. He is just quality, right?
Yeah, he's got all the skills, and he's just your archetype kind of Kiwi 12. He's like that big ball carrier, silky skills, but very much very physical. Probably something we lack a little bit at the moment is our size of our 12s, and they've got quite a few over there. But I another guy who I was fortunate enough to play against and saw him coming up, and he was so young, and he was already doing kind of the tough stuff, and you just this guy's got a bit of game about him, and it's good to see him back.
He wasn't afraid to show it either a couple of years ago. I don't know if you remember, but there was always a bit of they'd score, and there was a bit of a push in the back to the opposition. That brazen nature that probably doesn't always endear you to opposition fans or players.
Yeah, it's weird, eh? I used to be right out. I don't know. I think they're doing it too much now because everyone wants their Instagram moment where they over celebrate a scrum or a try or whatever. But I don't know. I quite like it when you got those young kind of mavericks, the guys who don't mind playing the villain, and then they rein it in a little bit, but they've got that bit about them. And
you probably have to have it to reach it to the top.
Exactly, and he's like Rico Yuan is very similar in the sense he's very, very chirpy on the field, but he backs it up. As much as you say, oh, it's not gentlemanly or whatever. He backs it up. He plays well. So, and I don't know. I think it adds to the drama of the game a little bit. Yeah,
agreed. I think the Brumbies will rue a couple of moments. We spoke about it. Nick Frost scores early on, runs over Cortez Radama, the number 9, but he gets steamrolled later on. If they're by Sammy Penny-Finau, he's not going to be the only one who gets steamrolled by him going forward. But if there's an element of his game that he needs to work on, it's probably still that physicality as a type 5 lock, isn't it? He can do all the athletic stuff. He's very quick out in the open, but great championship sides defined by rugged, abrasive locks like your Martin Johnsons, your John Eales, your Victor Matfields, your Retalix, your Whitelocks. Yeah, definitely. And South Africans just seem to produce them all the time. And look, in all honesty, I'm a big fan of him as well, Nick Frost. I think the amount of effort he puts in, even though he is a little bit thinner and not as physical, he doesn't go, he gives it all. I think, realistically, you probably, I don't know if he has the ball skills to be a 6, but he has the kind of the body shape to be a 6. So it is quite an awkward one for him. He's probably a perfect bench player in a way that he
He can cover 6. He can cover lock if the game starts opening up at a test level in the last 30. So difficult one, but yeah, a player who I rate very highly.
Well, they've got a big test on Friday night against the Blues. They're 1-2 now. It could easily be 1-3 when you come up against the Blues, who finally look like they're finding their feet. An unbelievable finish from Mark Talia to lead them to an important win over the Hurricanes, because it would have been just unbelievable and unfathomable to think that they could have been 0-3 to start the year.
Yeah, and it's like there's so many teams right now that will be going, we're 0-3 or 1-2 or whatever, but it's been like fine margins in all of them, and even teams that are like 2-1, it's the other way around. Like there is nothing in it, and it's really going to test the kind of mental fortitude and the coach's ability to kind of motivate his players and capitalize on momentum or instill belief when you do go down again. Or you look at the Drua, like they by no means have, maybe the first game they weren't great, but like they've been unreal since then, and it's fine margins, and ultimately that's what we love about the competition so far, because we probably haven't had that in the past, and with the shortened finals format as well, it just makes it a lot more interesting. So it's it's good to see.
It is certainly that. A good segue, speaking about the draw, because they came up against the Tars, and blimey, they looked like they were almost going to have that on a couple of occasions in that second half. The Tars, 2-0. On the surface, it looks like they're finding their feet, but they've got a long, long way to go. I think it's going to be a tough match against the Force this weekend. Where do you think the Tars are at, and some of the teething issues that they look like they're experiencing? What do you put those down to?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, they are 2-0, so it's much better to be analysing this from that perspective rather than what we're talking about earlier, the Drua, who have probably played some pretty good footy, but 0-3. So look, they've won. I think they will. Especially on the weekend, they were quite clunky, weren't they? You could see. One of the things I've been thinking about a lot is that the way that they're playing with this kind of quite territory focused, going to the line a lot, very similar to the Brumbies in the past, when they would go the line and back they're rolling more, but just quite don't have that kind of as a strength yet. And then even their kicking game, you look at all their kickers, you'd probably say, so if you look at Kellaway, if you look at Gordon and Tane, kick is probably their third best trait. Like Tane's a runner. So is Gordon, so is Kellaway, and kick's probably their third kind of preferred option. And I don't know if they have the execution at the moment to kind of execute these kicks or that game plan. And so I do wonder if it's teething issues. We spoke earlier about the Force kind of going through that as well. It might just take a bit of time for them to get that. You've got Mike Catt, you've got Dan, who's a heavily set piece kind of focused guy, and pressure and defense. So a little bit. I wouldn't write them off. They've got some really good parts. Like you look at that try, that's red headgear, who had an absolute
Langy Gleeson. Yeah.
Langy, he was unreal on the weekend. But you look at that try, like that's just pure effort. So there's signs of good culture in there, and that's a good thing, and you can build from that, which is really good.
Yeah, that was a great one in the first half, and he ends up grabbing a double. But yeah, the Lions players running in motion, that was where you needed it to get to. How much of it, like, we know that Dan McKellar is very much a set piece orientated kind of guy, and he would talk about the fact that when he was with the Brumbies, it took them half a season to kind of get going when he was first in charge of them, when he was trying to completely change what the Brumbies were known on under Steve Larkham and before that Jake White. When you've got so many competing forces, when you've got a Dan Palmer and Dan McKellar looking at that, and a Mike Catt's probably hoping, I need some more time with the backs. There's only so many minutes of it a day. Do you at times as a player feel like you might be short in one area where you're still actually learning much more about the game, and maybe we need to focus more on that?
Yeah, there was a game model that we used to use at like later in my career, and it was kind of copied from Russie. And it was basically a pyramid of what wins test matches. And it was built at the bottom was like, defense. And it was like discipline. It was 80% goal kicking. And then it was attack structures and counterattack or whatever, And I think it's very much whatever fills your pyramid at the bottom the most. And I think he's trying to get that around the defense, around the work rate, around set piece. And ultimately, you're never going to be perfect. Like, you will be better in a couple of years' time. But if you can start winning games and instill belief in that system, I think you start asking questions when it's not working and you're losing games, and you start going, we don't even get to play much, do much attack or whatever. It becomes a little bit difficult. But I think one thing I know about Dan is he's very, very well prepared. He's very well planned, and he'll understand the natural cycle that a team goes through, and that it takes 18 months or whatever, 6 months to kind of really embed those systems. So I think they're doing the right things. I wonder, from Dan came in quite late, he probably didn't get a huge say on the squad, so I think it'll be interesting in a year or two once he makes some moves and maybe picks players who are maybe a bit more suited to that. That'll be quite interesting.
It's always a fascinating thing when you say that, because you look at the list that they've got, and there's Wallabies right across the park. There's probably about 11 of them, and maybe not quite in the second row, which has been a staple of Dan McKellar's sides, when he brought in a Darcy Swain, a Nick Frost, ensured that he was there, and so forth. Tell us, Lungy Gleeson, he's a guy that you've just marvelled about. I marvelled about him in match reports recently, and I think it was a loss losing him. He's a guy that some people are saying he's nowhere near the heights of a Rub Valentini, and we know that Harry Wilson has re-signed for 4 years. But to me, Lungy brings something pretty special and quite unique to those back rollers. Like, there's not many of them that manage to break the line with his running lines and absolutely flatten attackers in defence very often either. Is he a big loss in your opinion, knowing that he's going to go to Montpellier at the end of the season, and he was uninvited from Joe Schmidt's camp to start the year once the news filtered out that he was going to head to the French top pool now?
Yeah, definitely. And he's still young as well, so of course he's not at Rob Valentini. Wasn't at Rob Valentini's level when he was a young fella. It takes time to develop, particularly these physical guys, and that's one thing you notice with them at the moment this year. Is he's so much more aggressive in the way, the meters he takes before he gets the ball, how quickly he runs onto the ball, even off the 9. It takes confidence, it takes size, it takes a lot of things, and to see him go up against the Fijian team, those games are always difficult as well when Islanders come up against Islanders, because they usually have a big target on their back, and they go after you, and I love it when you can see them. Perform really well in those games, because it kind of means a lot more. And I think, yes, short answer, massive loss. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back though. He's young. He'll be another guy who probably is better for it.
Yeah, 23, got a lot of years ahead of him. Hey, so much to be able to chew over, and I'm sure we could have spoken a lot more about the current contracting situation. We know that guys like Leighton Ikitau are going to head to Exeter. Jake Gordon's in discussions with them. I don't know if he'll necessarily go. I think that's more of a 50-50 case. And even if he does, he's 31. He probably deserves it. And I'd be picking him from overseas regardless. Lots to talk next week's pod. Might be able to touch in with James O'Connor off the back of the Reds and Crusaders going toe to toe. But awesome to speak to you, and another week in the bank. And I'll tell you what, this super season is just getting started, and it's been a lot more fun than previous years and iterations. I'll tell you that.
Sure has. Can't wait for it again. It's only Monday now, so it's only 4 more sleeps until we get to watch some more footy.
Can't wait. All right. Much more next week on the Roar Rugby Podcast.